What's going on, guys, and welcome to the 82nd Xamarin Android tutorial. This video is going to be a continuation of course, the 81st, which is going to be taking care of setting up and finalizing that skeleton frame that we're basically building for this example app that uses a design library. And this is what we left off with in the last video. Yeah, so something pretty blank. I know it doesn't look like much, but we do have a good foundation now to start building and start really putting in content. And notice that we do have our navigation view, and if we come over here to the side and we pull it out, we can see that it did lay out correctly. Our nav header is inflating good, our menu is inflating good. And if you guys haven't watched the last video or the last two videos on this, make sure to go back and start at video 79 to be exact, where I start to talk about the example app that we're going to be building. And this should start to look a little more familiar to you and make sense for you more if you are jumping in. Just make sure you go back and watch those so that you can be all caught up with us at this point in time. So now that we have this good, this skeleton that we have, we can start adding in the tabs and start adding in functionality, the button click, the hamburger that's supposed to be here, lots of other stuff that we need to get going. So let's not hold off on that. Let's start doing that now. And what we're going to be doing here is we're going to want to come into our main activity. So our main activity is what's going to be hosting all of the view pager and the tabs and all of that stuff. So that's where a lot of the hosting is going to be, and then we're going to segment the tabs within fragments. So each tab will be a fragment that is inflated and has its own logic and its own life cycle and everything. So it's a very cool layout. It's very fundamental to Android development at this point. And hopefully this gives you more of an example, not just a design library, but if you're not familiar with the way that works, it'll be being able to give you a good example of how that the whole fragment tab layout works. All right, so let's go ahead and start by making a drawer layout object. And this is going to be what controls and the way that we can kind of close and open the drawer programmatically. So we'll go ahead and do that. If we hit Control Dot, we'll be able to get some quick actions, which we will use the first one that will import the app compat v4, which is where the drawer layout resides. And here is where, of course, we're going to start creating our stuff. We're going to start instantiating a lot of stuff and really start setting up some stuff, and we'll continue to run it as we go. That way we can see our progress and you know, it's good to see our progress, and you know, it kind of gives us a little bit of a boost, and just a boost in I guess you could say almost morale, because sometimes it's just like you start pounding out code and you're not getting anything for it, and it just starts to come harder and harder to keep the motivation up. But so we'll go ahead and run it and see how we look over a period of time. And then of course it's good just to be able to see it. If it doesn't run correctly, you kind of know what you did wrong, or you can backtrack your steps fairly easily. So our support toolbar is a type, but we're actually aliasing that type, and I like to do that for, if you have followed along in my other videos, I do like to do that just simply to keep things clean, because there are things that are named the same but they're in different libraries. So there's stuff that's in the normal libraries, and there's stuff that's in the support libraries. And if they're in the same, and then Visual Studio is maybe might import the wrong one, and then you're it's not going to know what you want, and it's going to get confusing. So if you go ahead and you use this, let me lowercase b. If you use the aliasing that C# offers, then you should be in good shape. So this is complaining to me, saying that the type parameter support toolbar. Oh, that's why. Over here, I have aliased an action bar, not the toolbar. So sorry about that, guys. Maybe it's getting late and I'm starting to kind of lose focus here. I will do my best. Okay, so now that we have our toolbar, what we want to do is we want to set the support action bar. And what this will do, guys, is I've kind of explained this in other videos, but just in case you haven't watched, I want to make sure that I'm pretty thorough. We are setting the toolbar as the action bar, and this tells Android that if it has any menus or anything like that, to treat the toolbar as an action bar at this point. And notice that we don't have that function available to us. That is because we are not using the correct activity. This is the activity that you should be using if you're using it in the support library. So we will go ahead and do so now. Activity, control dot, that'll bring in our app compat. And our set support action bar method, which belongs to the app compat class. And here we go. So we're gonna get our support action bar. So now that our action bar is the toolbar, as long as we do this, we will get back the toolbar essentially as an action bar. Okay, so this is something else that I aliased. So support action bar, is going to be coming from support v7 app action bar. All right, and then let me just bring in all my aliases. That way I stop wasting your guys' time. So, all right, so we're gonna bring in support fragment, which you guessed it is coming from the support v4 app fragment namespace. And we're gonna bring in, last but not least, the fragments manager. And this just, like I said, prevents us from having to like write all of this out. And it's very verbose. This will save us some code and kind of clean things up for us. At least it does for me and keeps my head straight. So let's go ahead and well, we have that now. And now we will begin to use it. So we will set home as up indicator, and that is the hamburger. So we will do drawable, and this means like what icon do we want to be represented as the home button. Well, we want the menu button to be represented as that button, which is the hamburger. And then we will do AB action bar set display as home as up enabled. So this means to go so we set the indicator, and then we enabled it as the home button. All right. And if we run this now, I believe we won't run into any errors. Hopefully, I want to show you that what this 5 lines of code is doing, and it's essentially just bringing in that hamburger. All right, so there it is, looking sort of good. It's kind of off right now, but this is just temporary. So this is looking a little weird, but as like I said, it's going to be temporary. But what we're doing is we brought in the hamburger, and that is from the indicator that we put in, and what is now as the up button. But when we click on it, nothing happens, and that's because we need to still programmatically put that in. All right, but there is what that code does. So now that we've seen that, let's go ahead and continue on. Now we made a reference, or we made a variable named drawer layout, but we need to get the actual drawer layout. And the way we do that is first cast it, and then what we will do is we will get a reference to that, which is drawer layout. Okay, so we may not have an ID yet. Let's go ahead and double check that. Remember, our drawer layout is put into here, our AXML file that we created. And inside of that, I believe we should have the ID of it. Yeah, looks like we don't. So let's go ahead and add that. And that's why we were getting that error, because we will want to be able to reference it in code, which we were trying to do right now, but we weren't able to. So now that that's there, drawer underscore layout, this should now register. May have to do a rebuild, or no, may not. That was nice. And now we have a reference to that at runtime. So now let's go ahead and get a reference to our navigation view, which, remember, our navigation view is the drawer that pulled out. Go ahead and pull that up. This guy right here. So we're going to get a reference at runtime to that whole thing. Control dot will bring in the the namespace that it resides in. And let's do this, navigation, nav view, okay? And let's go ahead and be safe and check for null to make sure that we actually do have a reference, and we will do set up drawer content. This is a method that we have not yet created, but you get the idea. And if we control dot it, we will be able to have Visual Studio make a template for us. And look at that, it already brought in the parameter that we need based on what we're passing it in. So it's kind of nice to be able to do that way. It saves us some time. And before we set this up, let's go ahead and continue on here. Okay, guys, let's continue on in the onCreate method. So we have a tab layout, and we'll call that tabs, and we're going to get a reference to that now. So tab layout, resource ID, tabs. And just to jog your memory, this is going to be the tabs that we put in here. Remember this is where a lot of the bulk happens. Let me go ahead and run the other one, and that way we can kind of reference what we're doing. This is this tab layout right here. And remember, these tabs, this holds the actual header to tell the user what kind of tabs or what tabs they're on. So that's this guy right here, right? And the view pager is what's going to be utilizing those tabs and controlling the behavior of it. Okay, so we have a reference to that now at runtime. What do we want to do with it? Well, before we do anything to it, we need to get a reference to the view page. Control dot will bring that in. Name it whatever you like. And view pager, resource.id, and view pager. And just to jog your memory, this is the view pager that we were talking about here. And remember, the view pager is what actually holds the content of the tabs. And remember, the content of the tabs is a fragment. Okay, so kind of a mouthful, I know, but hopefully that makes sense as we code along. So the view pager is kind of what's using the tabs to actually inflate the content of the tabs. So the view page and the tabs are very coupled together. They are in fact working together, and that is why we are going to make a method called setUpViewPager, and we pass in a view pager. As you guessed, we can do control dot, generate that method. And then after the view pager is set up, what we can do is tabs dot setup. And this is part of the Android framework. It's a one-stop shop to just set up the tabs based on the view pager that you have set up. So once the view pager is set up through here, what we can do is we can now do tabs. This is built-in method. This is a built-in method, set up view pager. And we pass in the view pager that we set up, and this inflates all the tabs and does all the work for us after this. Very, very convenient. Okay, so while we're on this topic, let's go ahead and go into the setup view pager portion of it. This is the method that we're doing. So all this is doing is it's creating a tab adapter. And as you may have guessed, a tab adapter is something that will inherit from a fragment pager adapter. And we've worked on this a little bit before, so we're going to continue on with this from some previous videos we worked on this. And if you're not too familiar, I do advise looking up what an adapter is for a tab, but essentially it's just something that basically uses to adapt the view pager and the tabs together. So the view pager uses the tab adapter, and once you have the adapter set up, you set the view pager's adapter property to the adapter you made, and that'll make everything work. Does it make sense? I hope not, but if it doesn't, let me go ahead and give you a little bit more of a visual example of that. So inside of this class, we are going to make another class called tab adapter. And usually we would put this in another file, but because it's only going to be used for this certain particular situation, we're okay to, I think, leave it in here. So we're going to make a tab adapter. It's going to inherit from fragment pager adapter, which resides in the support v4 library. Now inside of here is all it's going to be is we're going to have a data structure, and that data structure is going to be a list of support fragments. Okay, so this is, remember, each tablet is in fact a fragment. So we will call it fragments. It'll be a property. And looks like we need to import probably list. So let's import the generic namespace. And we'll have another list of string, which all of this is going to do is hold the names of the tabs so that the user can easily see what they are going to at any given time or what they are on. All right. We will make a constructor for it. And all this will do is give us a convenient way to pass in this. So we'll call that. It'll use the base method of the fragment pager adapter, which in turn also calls for a fragment support fragment manager. And then we'll just go ahead and instantiate this stuff. Ooh, that's not pretty. Don't like how it does that, but okay. So let's go ahead and replace this. This is the alias that we have up top, right? Same thing, just makes for cleaner code. And there we go. And we will have a helper method in here called add fragment. That's a void type. And all it does is take in a support fragment. This is how to add a fragment, which in turn adds a tab. Okay. And then we're going to add the name, and we'll add it to our data structure. Add the fragments and fragment names, add the name. Pretty simple so far, guys. So we're going to override count, which all this does, guys, is return the number of fragments that are in this adapter. The number of entities, which is fragments, and that's pretty simple. All we need to do is call upon the list of fragments and return that count. Next, we will override the method called getItem, and all this does is get the current item of the tab that it's on. So, you know, here it's going to get item 1, which is the fragment, first fragment. Then it's going to get item 2, which the position is going to be 0 index, so 0 is going to get this first fragment, 2 is going to get this fragment, or 1 is going to get that fragment, 2 is going to get this fragment, and so on. So it's just getting the item, the fragment at that current position that is 0 index, so 0, 1, 2, and so on. So all we need to do here in that case is return that. So we'll do fragments, and then this is how to get that record given the position. And last but not least, we want to override something called get page title formatted, which also gives us a position. And then we want to notice that it takes in an iChar sequence, whatever. This is going to, we want to first return a new Java string, which we can then in turn pass in a C# string. So it's a little weird right here, a little hairy, but that's okay. And we will pass it a position for the fragment names collection, and then I'll pass in. So this passes in the actual item, the fragment that holds all the logic, all the layout, all the good stuff. And all this does is pass in the name, which will be corresponding to this up here. So this is the name, and then this is the content, of course. And that's it, guys. That's the adapter. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. It's not really too much to it. It's just a way for the Android to be able to get the count, the name of the fragment, the actual fragment that the user needs at that point. And that stuff is, all this stuff is called, not explicitly, it's called by the framework. It's called by the view pager. So the view pager, once it has this adapter, it will call all of these adapters methods. So it won't call this one, but it'll call the ones that we overrode. So it'll say, okay, what's the count? Well, we give it the count. And that's how it knows how many tabs to lay out. And then it'll say get item. Okay, it's the user has scrolled to index 1, and at that point it needs to get that item 1, and it does that by calling that method, and we give it to it the correct fragment. So this is a way for the view pager to be able to communicate and get the appropriate content. So all we need to do now is we need to do this, guys. So all we need to do is we need to make a new instance of a tab adapter, and we'll call it adapter, and we will pass it in the support fragment manager. This allows it to be able to use the probably the transactions for that fragments need. And this is where we want to add fragments. And each fragment is a tab, but we don't have fragments yet. So we're going to add, we'll add null here, but we're going to have to come back here when we actually have our fragments and do our thing. The reason why it's airing out is because it's a 2-parameter method. And another one. So we'll come back here. This is where we add our fragments. And like I said, every fragment is in tab. And then last but not least, we now set our adapter to the view page's property adapter. And this is how it knows to communicate with this adapter here to get all the content that it needs. And now that this is set up, the view pager tabs, remember this one says, okay, now that I have my view pager and the view pager knows all of the fragments and the tabs that I need, all it does is go ahead and say, okay, and behind the sheets, Android now creates everything else for us. Very nice. Takes care of the rest for us. All we need to do is add fragments here and supply an appropriate tab adapter, fragment pager adapter, which we call tab adapter. We need to supply it right here. And this is pretty much the code that all you need. It's very, there's nothing really too fancy you can do here. You just need to be able to supply content and let the view pager and tabs do the rest for you. Okay, guys, so that should be it for that. And now what we can do is we can have that set up. And the next thing we'll need to do is start setting up fragments. But after that, it's going to be very easy to start getting a lot of content on. But before we do that, let's go ahead and do something really quick after we set up the tabs. And we are going to get a reference to the floating action button. And just to jog your memory, I will show you what that is. Fab.click plus equal, let's create an event handler. And that is going to be, remember, this button right here. So we want to actually create a click method for it. And remember, in the click method, we had a snack bar. So we will make the snack bar here. And what we want to do, it wants to know what view it's coming from. So it wants to know what view it should anchor, I guess you can say. And that is going to be the view that actually called it, which is the button. So if you guys didn't know, the O here is the sender, and the sender is the button, and a button is a view. So what we can do here is we can call it view, and it is a view, and we'll call it anchor, and we will do O as view. That will cast it as a view. And then over here, it wants to know, what to say. I think I had it say, yay, snack bar. And then the duration of how long the snack bar should stay there. And it does have there is a nice enumeration that we can use for this. And I think you can, I had it length long, but you can do indefinite where it stays forever, short, or just long to where it's a few seconds. And from there, you can do set action. And this is the actual action that will happen when the user clicks on the action that you provide. So you don't have to provide an action, but if you want to, you can. And this is what the name of the action will be when they see it. So I'll call it action, which is what I had here, action. So when they click on this, what happens? Well, that is what you want to supply here. And notice that all it is this is the one we're going to use, is a action that takes in one parameter, which is a view. So we'll use v for keep it, somewhat making sense here. And we'll say do something here. And we will do something here. We're going to have an intent, and we're going to do a new intent, and we're going to leave that blank for now. We'll comment that out. We'll have to add some stuff in here, but this is where we're going to actually call the action that will bring up the bottom sheet example. But we don't have this yet, so I'm going to leave that blank. But this is where that will happen. And hopefully you can see that this is what's coming together and why this stuff is here and what it's actually doing. I hope this little two-way look sort of helps the visualization of what's really happening. And last but not least, I almost forgot, you want to actually show the snack bar. Otherwise, it's just going to do nothing, and you and the user will both be confused. All right, so if we were to go run this right now, it would pull this in, and it would probably error out because we're sending in null stuff, and it's trying to bring those fragments in that are null. No bueno. We don't want that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stop here, and I think we made some good progress in this video. We have our tab adapter that's set up, and it's ready for fragments to put in, which was what we're gonna be doing in the next video, is when we're gonna be setting up our fragments, okay? So just stay patient, guys. I know this is kind of like it is quite a bit, but I do want to make sure that I am explaining it thoroughly. The beauty of it is that if you guys already understand some of the material, just skip through this video, skip through part of the video, mute me, whatever you guys want to do. But for the people that aren't understanding it, at least they get a chance to kind of understand it as well. So I feel like it's a win-win for all of us. But it is a lot of work to kind of get this going. But once you do, I really think that you guys are going to have a nice app to kind of run with and see what else you guys can make with it. And that's going to be great. So in the next video, we're going to start setting up the fragments, which are, and some other stuff too, which is going to be holding a lot of the content that this application has to do with. All right. Thanks, guys.